Hello and welcome. In this video, we will understand how we can query multiple results using Dapper. First, let's understand what do we mean by multiple result sets. So when I query this particular line, I'm getting one row. When I'm executing this query, I'm getting multiple row. So this scenario is basically which we have covered in the last video where we have seen how we can query multiple rows. But in this video, we will see how we can query multiple results. Multiple results means two queries are getting executed one time and we are getting two result sets. One is for employee and second one is for employee address. So let's see how we can query multiple result sets using Dapper. I have created a table employee with these columns and I have inserted some rows in my employee table. Okay, so if I query my employee table, you can see I am getting 10 rows. And similarly, I have created one more table, employee address. And here I have added some addresses for the employees. And if I query my employee address table, you can see we are getting all the addresses. For this demo, I have created a new project. And in this project, we have the console application. And I have already installed the Dapper and SQL client package. And I have created two classes, employee.cs with the same properties as the column that we have in the database. And similarly, I have the employee address class. Right. Now let's coming back to our program.cs. Here I am creating a connection string and I am creating an SQL connection. Now let's use Dapper and see how we can get multiple results. So basically I want to execute these two queries. To achieve this functionality right, we have QueryMultiple and QueryMultiple async methods. So we can use QueryMultiple method and get a GridReader. Once we have the GridReader, we can map the objects using it. Let's understand this with the demo. So first let's write the SQL that we want to execute. Let's copy these two SQL queries and put it here. So this is the SQL that I want to execute, and this SQL will return multiple result set. Okay. Now to handle multiple result set, we have the method query multiple, right? And I can pass my SQL here. And if I hover over on query multiple method, you can see it is returning a grid reader. First, let's store the result of this in a variable. Now, once we have the grid reader, there are multiple methods in Dapper that we can use to map the objects. Let's go to slides and see those methods. So here is the complete list of methods that are available to read the data from the grid reader. So we have read, ReadFirstOrDefault, ReadSingle, and ReadSingleOrDefault. For different use case, we can use different method. And just like other Dapper methods, we have the implementation based on async and generic types also. From this result set, right, I want to query the first row. Let's use the data, and on data I can query read first, and I will be using the generic implementation. So I will pass the employee class here, and if you see the return type of read first, it is of employee type. So let's store this data. Now let's get the employee addresses. So let's create a variable employee address, and let's call data read because there are multiple rows. So I will be using the read method, and I will be specifying the class as employee address. See the return type now. So it is returning an IEnumerable of employee address. So now we have our employee and employee addresses. Now let's use console.writeLine and print the data. So I have added the console.writeLine. First I am printing the data of employee, and then I am using a for each loop and iterating through all the employee addresses and printing that also. Let's run our application and see if we are getting the expected result. So the application is running, and you can see we are getting one employee, that is Jane Smith, and we are receiving 5 addresses of Jane Smith here. And guys, one thing I want to mention here, this sequence in which you are getting the data from the grid reader is important, because it should be same as you have written in your select statement. So first we are getting the data from the employee. That's why first I'm getting data from the employee, and then I'm getting data for the employee address, right? And if I change this sequence, let's say I'm getting the data for the employee address and then I'm getting the data for the employee, you will notice this will not work. If I put a breakpoint here and rerun the application, you can see here in the employee address, now I have one row, and you can see this is nothing but everything is null here. And you can see the employee also, in this also we have all the values as null, right? So the sequence in which we are getting the data from the grid reader is also important. It should match the sequence of the SQL query. Right? Let's change it back to the correct sequence and rerun the application. And now if you see, I'm getting the proper employee, Jane Smith, and I'm getting all the 5 addresses here, right? So the valid data is available now. And that's it for this video, guys. In this video, we have seen how we can query multiple results using Dapper.